We are here, and now is the time to come together in this moment now. Relax and release all thoughts of the past, all future predictions, and just be here, present now. Now being the only time that is. So, we are here, and all is well. What we will speak to you again about today is a reminder, as always, you are a mind, not a body. You are the dreamer of the dream and not the figure in it. Many things we have to say. So it's about awakening, you see. Awakening is becoming more aware rather than remaining unaware, becoming mindful rather than remaining mindless. You are a mind, and therefore you have a full ability to choose how you feel, and what you experience is based upon how you feel. And what we mean by this is how you interact and engage with life. Remember, your life is your classroom. And you have but two real choices in this experience, and that is which voice, which teacher you will listen to. You have two parts to your mind. You have the ego mind, which is confusion and asleepness, and you have the Holy Spirit, which is the memory of God within you. And so you always have the option of which you will listen to. One brings peace, that being the Holy Spirit. The other lives and thrives on conflict, that is the ego. All ask for forgiveness. So it is important that you do become more aware of your patterns of thinking as you go about your day, so that you are aware of the points where you can change your mind. And in fact, you can always change your mind in how you show up in your life. That means how you feel, what you allow into your mind, as in how you want to feel. Remembering that no one can choose how you feel but you. You see, remember, you are not a victim of external circumstances, but instead, I do this unto myself. Does this make sense to everyone? So, no one is ever doing anything to you, really. It is always how you interpret it instead. That's why we do encourage you to ask the Holy Spirit to be the one to interpret your experience with you and for you. So, and of course, we can go on and on and on about all of this, and we will throughout this session with the questions as well. So, at this time, we are ready for the first question.
It has been expressed that our mind encompasses a field extending beyond the body. When I personally feel closeness to spirit, it is a pleasurable tingling in my brain area. It doesn't feel right that my self, capital self, would reside in my brain, yet that is where I have awareness of spirit through these sensations. Where does the heart of myself reside? I know it's just an image, but I would love to know where to surrender to mentally when I meditate. Thank you.
Wonderful. And thank you for this question. So, in the beginning, you stated that you are aware that the mind encompasses all things. Well, where else would it be but your mind? Does this make sense?
Yes.
So, it is all in your mind. There is nothing that is not in your mind. Does this make sense? Some things seem to be outside of your mind, but the thing is, if you perceive it and you have an idea of it, it is in your mind. Does this make sense? And you are correct. Spirit is not in your brain, it is in your mind. And the feelings that you have, that's simply how you are reached at this time. Does this make sense?
Yes, but the mind is said to be very large.
There is no way in which you can measure it. Does this make sense? It simply is.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Does this answer your question?
I'm waiting. Yes, well enough.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So, well, with that said, if you feel satisfied with this answer, then we are ready for the next question.
My emotions and feelings are so suppressed and hurt, and I feel so out of touch with myself. There's so much energy there that I don't even let myself look at it or know what the root of my feelings are. Please help.
Well, first of all, the only part of you that would ever feel hurt is the ego. Does this make sense? And it doesn't want you to look, because as you look on it, you can change your mind about it. Does this make sense?
I'm waiting for an answer.
Remember this, what the ego wants is to keep you blind of the awareness that you are a mind, or that you have a mind at all, you see. Because being a mind, you can change it, and that is what the ego fears, you see. Because once you change your mind, it is no longer relevant. Does this make sense?
Waiting.
We want you to realize that who you really are does not have feelings of hurt at all. So you can always discern that the feelings of being hurt or a feeling of sadness all come from the ego mind, you see, which is simply a system of thought, and all thoughts can be changed. So rather than letting the feeling of hurt just keep going with itself, begin to question those feelings. Does this make sense?
The feelings are so impacted, I sometimes struggle with having the confidence and discernment to look at it.
Well, that's exactly what the ego wants, you see. It wants you to be too afraid to look at it because it wants you to remain mindless. So rather than allowing that feeling of being impacted stop you from looking, turn to the Holy Spirit and ask the Holy Spirit how it sees it. And let the Holy Spirit shine light upon this and show you the truth of your being instead. All we are saying is begin to question these feelings as they arise. Forgive them by turning it to the Holy Spirit, by not judging the feelings. That's another thing. Don't judge the feelings. right or wrong or anything at all. Don't judge them at all. Just acknowledge, okay, here's that feeling again, the feeling of hurt. And the only thing that ever feels hurt does come from the ego mind. Therefore, I can then detach myself from that emotion, put that space between myself and the ego, and find clarity, which may not happen immediately, but as you practice this, it will become lighter and lighter. Does this make sense?
Waiting for an answer.
Well, then, simply that is what we have to say about this, and our answer will not change. Just make certain that as these feelings arise, you don't let them take over. And notice when you do let them take over, that was a decision that you made. You see, it was not something that is happening to you by anything external, but your own thought process, your own mind, which can always be changed. So,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome. And we're ready for the next question.
Miracles are everyone's right, but purification is necessary first. Can you comment on this?
Yes, indeed. Purification is necessary first so you can be aware of the miracles and understand what a miracle really is. Does this make sense? Miracles are not what you decide they are. Does this make sense?
Waiting for an answer.
You do not dictate what's a miracle and what's not. That's what we're trying to say.
Yes.
And so to purify your mind is to let go of all of your own interpretations of everything. Remember, a miracle is a shift in perception and a different experience.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed.
I know that I am, well, prior to that, purification is shift in perception.
Purification is letting go of your own interpretation of your experience. That means letting go of judgment. That means letting go of your own idea of what things are. Does this make sense?
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And in that, you open your mind to a shift in perception as you allow the purification. You choose the purification, actually. So we're ready for the next submitted question.
Thank you for taking this question. I know that I am responsible for creating my own reality. Having said this, I am having difficulty recognizing why I keep needing to have various surgeries on my right, my dominant hand. I love to garden, crochet, and many other activities that require its use. I also need it to do my service desk job, which I dearly love. It gives me unending opportunities to practice forgiveness. Can you please help me to see where I am choosing incorrectly and recreating this experience?
Thank you. Wonderful question. First of all, we want to say unending opportunities for forgiveness with your work. There are unending opportunities for forgiveness overall, including this. Does this make sense?
Waiting for new. Yes.
Wonderful. And do you feel there's a little bit of judgment there when thinking about the surgeries and what you're experiencing with your right hand?
Waiting.
Because really, to be at peace with what is healing, you see.
Well, it does give me opportunities to slow down.
Yes. And in that, you can become more in alignment with who you really are and hear what's really going on. Does this make sense? Rather than allowing the busyness of the world cover over certain messages that your higher mind might have for you. Does this make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, indeed. It does entail a need for forgiveness, you see. And we want you to lighten up on yourself and the situation by looking at it from a mind of peace, asking to see this as the Holy Spirit sees it. Allow the Holy Spirit to guide you in all that you do, think, and experience, meaning how you respond. Does this make sense?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Look lovingly upon yourself and lovingly upon your experience. And that means with forgiveness. So
Thank you. I love you.
we love you too. We do. And we're ready for the next submitted question.
You always remind us that we are a mind, not a body. My parents lovingly say to read the I Am Discourses by Saint Germain repeatedly for the next 2 years, and you will be healed from your many health issues. While I respect their path and they are happy that I am a student of A Course in Miracles, a few things don't sit well with me regarding this approach. Here's what I think about this. I feel like this is a judgment of the illnesses which are in my body, and I hear you say that we are not to judge. I feel like reading through the ACIM text with you, my focus is on the fact that I am a mind. My body will follow until all of the lessons are gleaned for me that I have chosen for myself in this lifetime through dis-ease. I feel like studying ACIM with you, remembering that I am a mind, while also focusing on the I Am discourses, which aim at healing the body, is diluting my focus. It seems to me that strength lies in maintaining a singular focus. Is this correct?
Yes, that is absolutely correct. The other way is split focus and not helpful. And so we want you to also let go of the idea of disease being something at all other than an illusion. Okay? Don't make it any more than it is. Does this make sense? And it is about healing of the mind, not the body. Remember, the body is really, like everything, a figment of your imagination. So.
Okay. I believe acceptance rather than trying to overcome or fight against perceived limitations seems a much better plan.
Yes,
if I am
indeed.
to understand you correctly.
Yes, indeed.
It
You are
also
correct.
It also feels better, but I don't like the feeling of defending the obvious weaknesses of my body. Each time I ask you a question, you give me a completely opposite answer than I am expecting. Am I completely off base in my thinking here as well?
Are you off base in thinking that we give you a completely different answer? Or what is this?
Or I
think what she's trying to say is she wants to know if she's on the right track with her thinking, or is she completely off base? She just mentioned that she's been surprised in the past, and you know, that was all that meant, I believe. I hope I'm right. If I'm wrong, please let us know,
Well,
questioner.
if that was the right interpretation of what you were asking, then yes, you're on the right track. You're on the right track.
Yes, that was correct.
Beautiful.
So what do I say to my parents?
You don't have to say anything. You do not have to defend yourself at all. In fact, remember, in your defenselessness, your safety lies.
Sweet.
Yes. Just brush it aside. You don't have to explain anything to them. Stand in your truth. You see.
Yes.
Accept them for where they are and their path, but accept yourself for where you are and your path. Don't try to commingle the two, you see, because they don't mix. Does this make sense?
Wow, how wonderful. Thanks.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So, we are ready for the next question.
So watching near-death experiences, everyone has the experience of love and heaven, in quotes. They say where they were was something more, quote, real than the experience of reality here.
Because it is.
Wow, once we transition this form, are we, quote, awake and no longer in the dream, or are we still in a version of the dream?
Well, there are some that do still experience the dream because it takes a little bit of a continuation of the step-by-step awakening. But there are those, and you are among them, because you have this awareness that it goes from illusion to realization. Does this make sense?
Yes.
When you transition. Actually, you can have that experience here and now. Does this make sense? You don't have to wait until you physically, or not physically, but you don't have to wait for your physical body to experience a death or transition.
Thank God.
In order to experience heaven. You can experience heaven now. You see, remember, heaven is not separate from you. In fact, you are heaven itself, but you have lost awareness of this. You have fallen into the trap, as everyone here has, of the dream being real, of you being separate from your source, which is not true. Does this make sense?
Yeah. So are there levels of this dream?
In real reality, no. But as you ascend, as you wake up, you will go through little shifts here and there. Does this make sense? So it's a gentle step-by-step shifting, moment by moment decision making. Does this make sense?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. You see, if we gave you the full all of everything right here and now, you would become so terrified that more healing would have to be introduced to you once again, and it would be not as easy, you see. That's why we encourage you to take this step by step. Don't try to push yourself into awakening, okay? That doesn't mean become lazy about awakening, because really the awakening is taking that step by step, moment by moment, choosing how you want to feel, choosing what thoughts you think, and so on. Does this make sense? How you respond to life. Notice when your ego is at play and choose again, you see. That's awakening. That's becoming aware. That's becoming mindful.
So were you conscious at birth, or were you just as delusional as the rest of us?
Well, everyone is a little bit of the delusional when they first enter. But some have a plan to quickly come out of that. Does this make sense? Typically, this takes lifetime after lifetime of this experience and a decision ahead of time for that to occur. Doesn't mean that you can't have it occur now by decision now. Does this make sense?
Yes.
Everyone can have this experience. Everyone can wake up. You simply have to make the decision to wake up. And it's a moment by moment process. That you don't relax into temptation to fall back asleep, you see. And we are going to say the temptation is strong. But who you really are is stronger still. So it takes your awareness and your deliberate intention to align with who you really are and go with how it directs you rather than the ego mind. Does this make sense?
Yes.
And remember this, it is so simple, but it is not always easy. Because you have so many practiced thoughts and so many practiced beliefs that these are the things to look at with the Holy Spirit and allow to be unwound. Does this make sense?
Yes. So even if we did not make the plan beforehand, can we still
The
wake up?
plan is now. Remember, now is now.
Oh, okay.
So you want to operate from that point. You see that now is the only time that is. That means the decision that you make right now is your decision. You see. Does this make sense? It doesn't matter what you thought or made a decision about long time ago and all of that at all. What matters is now.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can
Very
I
good.
be aligned with God if I wish for nice things and nice experiences?
In fact, we want to finish this by saying you are in alignment with God when you align with the presence of beautiful experiences, you see. But the beautiful experiences that we are speaking of are not the experiences necessarily that you see as a form-based experience. Does this make sense? It starts with how you feel. Does this make sense?
Yes.
In fact, we have said this, and we want you to remember this. God's will for you is perfect happiness. That means without condition, without fear, you see. Does this make sense?
Yes.
So yes, you can be aligned with God when you choose to be happy. We want you to choose to be happy. No matter what seems to be going on around you, you always have the ability to choose how you feel. Does this make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. And keep in mind that God's will for you is perfect happiness.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Greetings, brother. How are we to reconcile all the conflicting stories of your life on earth that come through seemingly legitimate sources? As an example, a channel that I'm familiar with said that after the crucifixion, you spent 600 years on earth in the flesh, traveling and learning. After accessing the Akashic records, another saw that when you met with Pontius Pilate, Pilate was so impressed by your erudition and cleanliness as part of being part of the Essene Brotherhood that you were freed and not crucified. Another book says that you are Michael of Nebadon and the sovereign of this universe, and that you returned to Nebadon after the resurrection, having fulfilled your bestowal to this world. I am afraid for me, it is the case that the more I read, the less informed I become. Or, as Socrates said so eloquently, the only thing I know is that I know nothing, and I'm not quite sure that I know that.
Wonderful. So actually, how the question was wrapped up is the answer right there. Does this make sense?
Yes.
All of these things, okay, these stories that have come about is to make what seemed to occur more palatable for the ego mind and to keep you asleep and separate. Does this make sense?
Yes.
They are fancy tales to clean up something that it deemed a discrepancy. But we want you to realize the crucifixion had a purpose. And that purpose was to show you that no matter what happened to my body, I could still love as I always loved, no matter what anyone seemed to do to the body, because I knew that I am not a body. And so it matters not what happens to the body, my love remains the same. Also, it showed life is eternal and you are not a body. Does this make sense?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I read in a book that claims that the words are directly from you. It says, quote, "My blood has nothing to do with the redemption of mankind from sin, nor has my blood any effect in reconciling men to God or making them one with him. The only thing that works this great result is the new birth," unquote. Can you confirm or deny?
Well, we will confirm that we said that my blood does nothing because blood is illusion, you see. Does this make sense?
Yes. Waiting for an answer. Yes.
Wonderful. And we want to remind you that what we teach is to help you remember that you are not separate from us or from God at all, but one with all, you see. So these stories, although they seem very fanciful and to the ego very exciting, are very separating, you see. Says that I have something you do not, or I had an experience that you cannot have. Does this make sense? We want you to understand we are one. And when I awoke, you did too, because we are minds. And when one mind awakens, all minds awaken. So. Anything else?
Yes. You mentioned before to ask the Holy Spirit, moment by moment, for help and to show me the way. I can't seem to do that when I'm concentrating on something, and as my task gets more difficult, I get anxiety, and then I stop and ask again. This happens especially when I am reading and studying. How can I keep asking when I am studying? I can't seem to do both at the same time.
Well, let's see. Know that you have asked and continue your study. The anxiety comes from the thought that you're still separate. Does this make sense? The anxiety says that you asked, but you did not receive. meaning you're pushing the love away from you when the love is ever present with you. And the moment you ask, your awareness is there. Continue on with what you are doing. Does this make sense? And just know that we are with you.
Yes.
And that's all that anxiety really is telling you, you see.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's just saying to you that you are separate from love when you are not. And here's another thing. It doesn't matter what your form seems to be doing. You still remain love and loved, you see. This is illusion. This dream is but a dream. Don't take it seriously. Meaning, don't make it more real to you than it is. Does this make sense? Be lighter about it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Know that you're getting serious if you can begin to feel an anxiety during your studies.
Yes, that's hard to do.
So just shake it off. Just shake it off and notice the anxiety and say, there you are again. I see this. I know this is my ego. My ego has nothing to say, but it's trying to say something and distract me from present awareness. And so just brush it aside, you see. And sometimes it's even helpful to say, yes, I hear you, I feel you, but I'm going to put you away for a little while. And if it's important, I can pick you back up later. And then go on about your way. Does this make sense?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Remember, it is simply a thought. That's all the ego is. It's a false thought. It's a meaningless thought, really, but it wants you to think that it's filled with meaning. You see, really, it's nothing. You can simply let it go and change your mind.
So is fasting necessary to let go of the ego? For
Not-
example, when you were healing, when you were in this plane?
There are many ways of thinking about fasting. There is fasting from food, and there is also fasting from ego thoughts, you see. Does this make sense? Which are you speaking of?
Yes. Not sure. Waiting for response. Yes, food.
Well, the food to fast from are the thoughts that the ego gives you, you see. That means noticing the thoughts and letting them go and choosing not to go down that path. Does this make sense?
Waiting. How?
You notice how it feels and you choose again.
Oh, okay.
Meaning judgment. You can fast from judgment. And it isn't necessary to take on fasting as a serious endeavor, you see. Know that if it becomes something that's so serious feeling and that it's something you have to do, you can understand right then and there that the ego is involved. Does this make sense? Because it is only the ego that would push you to do something, including its own demise, you see. That's why it's always trying to get rid of itself.
Yes, I see.
Trying to get you to do that, you see.
Okay.
So there's always that thought, I've got to get rid of the ego. I have to get rid of the ego. I can't keep going if I don't get rid of the ego. My number one priority is to get rid of the ego. No, if you're thinking like that, then you're thinking with the ego. Because the Holy Spirit doesn't see anything, you see. It overlooks the error because it is not there. Does this make sense?
Yes. Thank you
You're welcome.
so much.
Wonderful.
So previously, while working through the text of A Course in Miracles, I read the lessons with the belief that I was a body and that the lessons applied to me as a body. This time, however, while reading through the text concurrently with you, I am seeing myself more as my higher self. And it is here that I am experiencing confusion and would appreciate clarification. For example, lesson 77 states, I am entitled to miracles. The first paragraph states, you are entitled to miracles because of what you are. You will receive miracles because of what God is, and you will offer miracles because you are one with God. Again, how simple is salvation? It is merely a statement of your true identity. Should I read these lessons as instruction for myself in the expression of a body, or as a reminder that I am a mind? Is my ego placing confusion in my path? And how do I proceed?
The ego is absolutely placing confusion in your path because the ego is confusion. As far as the mind-body situation, approach it always as a mind. Because what we were expressing there is miracles are natural to you as you were created. You were created as mind. Does this make sense? God did not create your body. God did not create bodies at all. So you want to think of yourself, as you were saying, from your higher self, which is mind. Does this make sense?
Yes.
Wonderful.
So I feel that the Holy Spirit has been gently guiding me to look at my beliefs about my body, especially in letting go of the belief in needing food supplements. Recently, someone taught me how to muscle test myself, and I discovered most of my food supplements were not needed or wanted by my body. Shortly after that, I had my blood tested at a general physical, and the results confirmed that most were not needed and some were actually harmful. I feel like I'm in the middle of a big belief busting lesson with the Holy Spirit.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely. And in fact, in truth, no supplements are needed at all. None. So, yes, belief busting lesson. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Anything else about this that you have?
No.
Is the questioner online?
No, thank you.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Just keep going with your intuition. Keep going with how you feel. Keep moving toward freedom, release from your false identity. You see, the false beliefs. So wonderful.
I'm understanding that organized religion is outside of the mind of God. I have a client whose wife has asked for a divorce. He sent me a message stating that he and his wife had received a quote unquote prophetic word from their pastor in 2017. He said they were precise words concerning their marriage and states that what's happening now is mind boggling. Please share how to respond.
Well, a prophetic word such as this is not set in stone. Does this make sense?
Waiting for an answer. Yes.
Wonderful. So what happens, happens, and can be looked at with the Holy Spirit and proceed in that way rather than judging the situation as being wrong or inaccurate. Does this make sense?
Yes.
Wonderful. Things shift and change according to the atonement plan for each one. Does this make sense?
Yes.
So that's all we have to say about this one.
Thank you.
Thank you for this question. Are there any other questions at this time?
Yes. In this time of physical distancing and virtual encounters, what steps, tips, or practical advice could you provide to address harsh judgment from a brother/sister that, while we have learned under your guidance to take it lightly and to forgive, that it's even really not happening, to help the judging brother or sister to not get further triggered when we can't look them in the eye or hope that they experience our loving energy in response via Zoom?
Well, you can't expect everyone to experience life exactly as you experience it. Does this make sense? So you've been going along in this way, and so you've been having awakenings and some deeper realizations and all of that. Not everyone is. Does this make sense?
Yes.
And so you can't expect someone who has not been on this path to be on this path. Does this make sense?
Yes.
And so what you can do is simply be loving and understanding of where they are and where you are, and know that only love is present, you see, rather than judgment. Does this make sense?
But there seems to be an uptick in those being triggered from a distance.
But it is about how you respond, not how others respond. You can always approach everything from a mind of peace rather than conflict. Meaning you can see the illusion and be aware of the illusion and know that it is an illusion, but remain at peace because you know the truth.
Okay, with love.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're
Remaining
welcome.
in peace.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely. Always. Don't let someone else's triggers trigger you. Know that if that happens, know that the ego is in control. Does this make sense?
Yes.
And also, it just is what it is, you see. A lot of humans at this time are easily triggered. And it is those who understand to question the trigger or their response or reaction that are the ones to bring healing to the whole of all that is in the mind. Does this make sense? It's always about your mind, not others' minds. Does this make sense?
Understood. Yes, just feeling bad for them. Bless you.
Well, bless you too. What you can do is, instead of feeling bad for them, obviously you probably mean compassion. You feel compassionate that they don't understand the truth, but just keep holding them in your mind in truth, that what you're seeing is simply illusion. But you know that who they really are is not in this experience of trigger. Does this make sense?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Correct. Compassion. Okay.
Yes.
We'll observe and remain in peace.
Absolutely. It's the only way to be, truly.
Is there only one creator of the dream? Can you explain?
Well, yes, there is only, well, let's see, how do we put this? God did not create the dream. That's what we have to say. There is only one creator, as in there's only one source, one real source, which is God. Does this make sense? Then there is the lower mind, which makes, you see. And so it is always making things, just as your higher mind is always creating. Love creates only like itself. And so all real creations, which are not always experienced in the dream, are eternal and ongoing. The other things are just made up. Does this make sense? And in the making up of things, the making up of stories and all of that is from the mind of separation, the ego mind. Does this make sense?
Yes.
But yes, you can look at it like this. You're all the same in that everyone has an ego. Everyone also has access to the Holy Spirit. As we have explained, you have two parts to your mind. You have the ego and the Holy Spirit. So the ego, which is your sleep state, and the Holy Spirit, which is the remembrance of God, your memory of God. So you always want to discern which mind you are listening to, and you can tell by how you feel. One brings about conflict, the other brings about peace. So pay attention to that and make your decisions by how you feel. Does this make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm experiencing shifts. I then expect to be a bit more awake. My other interactions in life seem to show me, oh, no, you didn't.
Well, you can tell the oh no you didn't, that oh no you didn't. You see, really just take it lightly. Don't take it seriously. Don't make a big to-do about any of it. You see, the little shifts, the lightening up, is letting go of your beliefs that this plane of existence, that this experience is real or meaningful. Does this make sense? Remember, everything here, your dreams, all of it, all that is here in illusion is meaningless. It really is. Does this make sense?
Amazing. Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. And I love you.
We love you too.
I heard that certain foods and drinks interfere with communication with you or the Holy Spirit. Is that correct?
Not at all. That's an idea and a judgment. Does this make sense? How can that which is beyond this experience, beyond the dream, be affected at all by anything in the dream when nothing here is real? It's just your beliefs and your thoughts that is a block to the awareness and the presence of love. Does this make sense? It's as
yes.
Yes.
I see.
To say that food can do anything to you says that, again, you have fallen into victim mentality that something external from you can do anything to you when it cannot do anything at all. Does this make sense?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So, can Christ be compared to the human imagination? Why not? Thanks.
Well, imagination really is, we'll just say it like this so you can understand, is of the ego in the sense that the world was made up by the ego. Does this make sense? Christ is beyond illusion. Christ is beyond the dream. So it is beyond imagination. Does this make sense?
Waiting for an answer. Yes, thanks.
You're welcome. Remember, Christ is outside of the dream. Imagination is still in the dream. you see.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Your imagination can be used if you give it to the Holy Spirit for good, you see, for your awakening. But you have to be willing to give it over completely to the Holy Spirit to use for that purpose alone, rather than rooting you further into the dream. Does this make sense?
Yes, that's it.
Wonderful.
In reference to the previous question, what about drugs? How does that affect any?
Not unless you believe it will. That's only, here's the thing, that's relating to yourself as a body. That's another thing, you see. You can be completely awake and out of the body, or out of the identification with the body, and no matter what you take will not even affect your body, you see, because you know the truth. So drugs cannot do anything to you. Once again, it cannot do anything to your mind. Your mind cannot be affected by anything but mind. Does this make sense? That means your beliefs, your thoughts, and what you think is real. Does this make sense?
Yeah. Okay.
So if you have to take a drug for any reason, let's say for a health situation, which of course, by the way, is still illusion, if in the dream it is something you have to do, you do not have to let that stand in the way of your awakening. But in fact, you can rise above that and look on yourself with forgiveness, with love, and with peace, and just love, you see. Does this make sense?
So it just affects the lower mind, not the higher mind, right?
As it elects for it to, yes. We really want you to understand everything you experience is by your election. Does this make sense? Meaning you have decided to align with yourself as the lower mind then. But also don't judge yourself for these experiences. Does this make sense?
Yes. Okay.
Does this answer your question?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
One last question.
Okay.
In A Course of Love, it is said that the ego thought system is over with, but it is only that remnants will remain long after. Is it only as alive as our choice for it?
Yes, that's exactly right. It's been over. It was over the moment it became, you see. It was corrected the instant that it arose. But the belief in it was so strong that it went on, you see. And so the only way that you will experience not having it, or the true healing, is to continue to go forward toward freedom from the thought itself. Does this make sense?
Yes, and thank you for this loving conversation.
You're welcome, and thank you for this loving conversation. We love you, and all is well. We appreciate this beautiful interaction as always, and we look forward to the next time that we join in this way. But we are always with you, and we love you. Namaste.